Thank God. He is everything and more.
And more.
Oh, yes, He is. He is the reason that I got out of bed this morning. He and He alone made it possible. Lord, I love you, Lord, and I'm asking you, Lord, to touch me, to word my mouth, that I may be able to say something to your people that will stir their heart. In your name, amen.
Amen.
You know, sometimes we look and don't understand. Because what we're looking at doesn't make any sense to us. And it doesn't always have to make sense. It should sometimes. But God has a will.
Amen.
And His will is a will that we're supposed to and should abide to.
Amen.
The theme today is God's will.
God's will.
You know, and I look at, and I know what a will is. I mean, there's a different kind of will. There's a paper will that when you get your life in order, you want certain things to go to certain individuals, so you make a will. And there are things that we have today that we rely on. Because someone gets sick, they want to fix it so that they don't want to be on our life supporting device. So they make out a will to health care. But God has a will that nothing can change. So you can change your will. You just call your lawyer up and say, well, my sister made me angry today, so take her out. Put Raphael down there instead. You know, you can do any of those things because we're human. And we change our mind.
Oh, yes.
Periodically. And sometimes we forget what we will. But God.
But God.
But God doesn't forget. When He says, I will do, He will do.
Yes.
Now, sometimes you read in Exodus, you read the story about Moses. And you say, well, Moses led people out of slavery, but it took him 40 years. God didn't say how long it's going to take him. It didn't. God said He will see the promised land. Now, He didn't say it's going to take 40 years, 40 days. But I think about that. And one of the things that I think about, why did it take them 40 days? When God's will was that they was going to get to the promised land. Because they were disobedient.
Yes.
They could have made it the first time out. But they were disobedient. And so, it costs. God has a set. When He set it, most time He don't really give a date and time. He can. And it will operate on that time.
Oh, yes.
But He promised. Some of you mothers and fathers, uncles and nieces and aunts, say, God promised you something. And sometimes you kind of scratch your head and say, wait a minute. Now, I was 31 years old when God promised me. I know it was Him. I heard Him. Now I'm 51. And I don't see anything any closer to what He promised me. Sometimes it's not about God being slack. It's not about God not remembering. Sometimes it's not time.
Amen.
And sometimes you're not ready.
Amen.
Sometimes you're being disobedient. Now, I may not see it. When I see you, you're full of smiles and you're just being so courteous, you know. But when the doors close at home, you could be a demon. And maybe that's why God's will hasn't worked out yet. Maybe he just wants you to kind of wake up to understand that you have a job to do. More so than going on to work or cooking. You have a job. But I think about God's will, and that's why I like Moses. All the things that happened, the 40 years and going through the deserts and the wilderness and all the hardship, God promised them.
Yes.
And in the end, he took them to a place and told them, look over there. You're not going, but take a look. That's the promised land I promised you. You had to put somebody else in charge. Sometimes, I know some of you say, well, God said this and God said that, and it hasn't happened. But when it happened in a way that kind of confused you sometimes. And I'm just briefly going to mention this till I really get into Moses. God makes people promises. And I don't know all the promises he made you, but I know the promise that he made my father. Took some time. I know the promise he made about my child. It took some time. I know some of the promises that God had made to some relatives of mine. It took some time. And that's okay. But God said, I will. And he did. So when I look at how things happen, but we got to make sure we hear what God is saying.
Amen.
You know, and when I think about the burning bush, and I want Sister John to go to Exodus 3 and 10.
Come now, therefore, and I will send thee unto Pharaoh, that thou mayest bring forth my people, the children of Israel, out of Egypt.
Come now, therefore, I will send you to Pharaoh. So now he said, I will send you. Moses didn't go on his own. He said, I will send you. So sometimes we try to get ahead of things. When God said, I will send you, that means whatever it takes, I get you there.
Amen.
Now, you may say, well, Lord, you told me to go, but Pharaoh is not an easy man to deal with. Lord, you told me to talk to my child, and Lord, he's hard-headed. You know, you telling me to go talk to him. That boy is not listening to me. He listens to everybody else. He said, go. See, if you just be obedient and stop trying to get ahead of things, it'll be all right.
Amen.
You know, and I think about that, and it happened. Then I think about what he said. What did God say? When they was in the desert, in the wilderness, he made a promise to Moses, didn't he? Now, the promise was Exodus 16 and 4.
Then said the Lord unto Moses, Behold, I will rain bread from heaven for you, and the people shall go out and gather a certain rate every day, that I may prove them, whether they will walk in my law or no.
Then the Lord said to Moses, Behold, I will rain. Now, who did he say he's going to rain? I will rain. And did he do it?
Amen.
See, people will say, well, we're hungry. You know, sometimes we just don't understand. God said, I'm going to do something. You know, I happened to be somewhere the other day. And a lady, I don't even know who she is. I don't know if I remember her today if she walked in the church. I hope I would. But she made a promise. That's what she told me. That she made a promise to God that she was going to pay her tithes. And she said, and I don't have a lot, but I promise God. And saying, God is doing things for me that I can't explain to you. So I don't even know you. She said, but I stopped you. She stopped me. Because you look like a man of God. There's something about you that tells me you're a man of God. And I stayed there and listened. And she took her time and she took out $3.40. See, that's my tithe. So that tells me she's not making a lot of money. Mm-hmm. But she promised. And God told her, I will do certain things for her. And she didn't go into it. But what she wanted to make sure she kept her end up. Uh-huh. Church, I brought the $3.40 this morning.
Amen.
And I let them know it wasn't my $3.40. Because some of you, I know, I have been given money and told to put it in the church. And sometimes it gets mixed up with your own money. But I made sure this didn't get mixed up because I put it in another pocket. I didn't want it mixed up. I didn't want to give you $5 until you give me some change. I wanted to put her $3.40 in. Because I didn't want to what? Block her blessing. See, sometimes you're standing in the way of somebody's blessing.
Yes.
Get out the way. Let that blessing be.
Amen.
So God promised her, and she said she sees evidence of what he said. He said, I will do. She didn't tell me what it was. But she made it her business to keep her in. So when God told you he's going to touch that person in your family, or he was going to take care of that migraine headache, do you do what you're supposed to do?